Greetings, Ohio Valley. This is Dan Lehman with OSU Extension from Belmont County.
And this is Karen Cox from WVU Extension in Ohio County. Thanks for tuning in to Extension Calling, your source for research-based information for the farm, garden, and home. Dan is away on military leave right now, so we're going to bring back some of our previous shows that didn't make it to the podcast. We hope that you enjoy them. As always, we welcome your feedback. If you'd like a written transcript of the show, please email me at Karen, Karen, .cox, COX, at mail, mail.wvu.edu, or call 304-234-3673. Thanks again for listening.
We're here today with Joe Lehman from NRCS.
Good morning, Dan. My name is Joe Lehman. I work for the United States Department of Agriculture, specifically...
Which is the USDA.
Yes, specifically the Natural Resource Conservation Service, which is NRCS. And so we are located, we have offices located throughout the area in Ohio as well as West Virginia.
So here in Belmont County, we have one, and where is it?
It's located in Barnesville, Ohio. So our office is co-located with another USDA agency called the Farm Service Agency, and we're located in Barnesville, there where we can help all the landowners in Belmont and Monroe County.
All right, and so just to kind of clarify a few things. I know there's a lot of different agencies out there, and we have some overlapping roles and some very specific things that we do. We being OSU Extension, as well as WVU Extension, if Karen were here, we are state, and we do help at the county level, and we bring research information to help out the community. So you guys are federal. And you guys do a little bit more than just education, correct?
Yeah. So with the USDA and NRCS, honestly, we rely a lot on OSU Extension as well as the local soil and waters in the counties to help with the educational purposes. So what we do, though, on the federal level is we also really have a lot of technical expertise in helping landowners fix problems on their property.
All right. So fix problems. And today we have, I got this form in front of me. This is one of these federal forms that Joe likes to bring around. And this is it's form, what is it? CPA 52.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about CPA 52?
Sure, Dan. So, as Dan says, we like to bring around forms, and that we do. We're very structured that way. So when we come visit you on your property, and wants to let you know that's a free service. Anytime you want us to come out and help you figure out some issue that you have going on with your property, we'll be more than glad to come out and walk with you and talk with you and assess the situation and see what we can do to help you out. Whether that's technical advice or some other way, that's a free service that we'll be glad to offer you. But back to the CPA 52. So we'll bring this and we'll have it in our back pockets and we'll carry it with us as we're walking through your property with you. And again, this is all landscapes. So whether you own a farm and you're in agricultural production, or you have a forest and you're looking at maintaining your forestry, or if you are just own a piece of property and you're wanting to develop it a little bit better for wildlife or anything in general, what we'll do is we'll come out and walk with you through it.
About ponds and stuff, recreational, if you want to improve that, it's not looking so good.
Sure. When it comes to ponds and things like that, we have specific documents that we can refer back to help you with whether it's maintaining it or developing a new one. We can gladly look at ponds and assess the soils and the site locations and what you got going on. And if your current pond is currently having issues, we can definitely help you out with how to control pretty much any aspects of that pond and keeping it young and vibrant.
Right. And I know a big concern that you guys have at NRCS is environmental concerns, correct?
Yeah.
So that's when you're talking about improvements, you're talking about on the environmental side, which is absolutely important. Karen and I do push it a lot. But on top of that, we like to also emphasize production and income return and things like that. But absolutely. I mean, I think
and they go hand in hand, don't they, Dan? So when it
Yes.
comes to assessing your resource concerns, the better that you make your farm environmentally, typically the better production you're going to get out of it.
right. And I did want to emphasize, maybe not right away, might not see it right away, but if you're going for the long haul and long-term production, and most of these multi-generational farms, you don't want to be the one that runs it to the ground. Keeping it in good health and production and having good stewardship is going to make it profitable for not only your life but your successors' lives as well.
Exactly, and that's something to brag home about too. And all your neighbors are going to notice. They're going to notice the good stewardship of your property. They're going to see that your property looks well. If this is production, your production should increase over time, and that's something to write home about and to brag about. So in that
CPA
aspect,
52.
CPA 52, we're going back to that. So we start with the CPA 52. What are the main things that we look at?
Well,
number one on the list is the client's objective. So you listeners out there, it's what you have that you really want to work on. Well,
let me just kind of, I'm going to chime in because most of our listeners don't understand these numbers, and neither do I. So CPA 52 is the environmental evaluation sheet.
Sure is.
Right. All right. So evaluation worksheet, environmental evaluation worksheet.
Right. So, that CPA 52 number doesn't really mean anything. So environmental evaluation worksheet. And again, we're gonna talk to you about what your objectives are and what you want to do. And then we're gonna start looking at all the things what we call them resource concerns in our line of work. So, but what it might be to you is just a problem area. So, one big one would be soils. So a big issue that we get asked about a lot is soils, and fertility is a huge one. We get called out on soil fertility a lot. How do I manage my soil fertility, and what do I need to do to make my soil healthier and better? So when we come out there, the first thing we're going to want to know is about a soil test. And Dan is really great with soil tests, and he will help walk you through, if you already have one or if you need one, walk you through getting a soil test taken and then understanding the results that you get back. So what are the main things that we look for when it comes to a soil test, Dan?
Well, first thing I like to know if somebody wants to do a soil test is what they're using the land for. Land usage is going to be pivotal in figuring out the correct way to do a soil test. So if you have a pasture field, for instance, chances are you have a lot of cool season grasses and legumes, and those roots are going to go about 4 to 6 inches at the most. So you don't want to do a real deep soil test. Now, if you are, let's say you want to put some row crops in, you want to do some corn silage or grain production, soybeans, even alfalfa, you're going to have to get a really deep soil test because those roots are going to go a lot deeper. Do you till? Things like that. So land usage is going to be very important in order to specify the depth that you want to test the soil. And then when we get those results back, it's definitely going to give us the phosphorus and the potassium levels, the calcium levels. But nitrogen is one of the tricky ones. And Karen and I talk about this point a lot. Nitrogen is going to be based on the crop that you're putting in there. So how much tonnage are you getting from your fields? Are you rotational grazing? Are you baling hay? And if so, how much? What's your goal? Is that a realistic goal for the area? And that's the information that we have. And I can help you make sure you apply the proper quantities so that one, it's not an environmental concern, and two, you're not over applying to the point where you're wasting money, because that's obviously a concern in terms of the income level of your farm and how it's going to work for you. But right, so land usage is one of the very important things in dealing with the soil test. So All right.
Other aspects of soil that we look at, other than just soil test, is we look at soil erosion. So when we're out there walking your property with you, we're looking at soil erosion. Do you have any at all? And at what aspects do you have? Is it a sheet erosion? Is it a rill erosion? Or are there big gully erosions on your property?
Sheet, rill, and gullies. Tell us about those.
So sheet rills and gullies, that's just they're just terms that we use to classify depths of the erosion. So basically how much tonnage of soil is being eroded from the property. So those are just keywords that we use to help put them in a classification.
So, like, for example, if when we're driving in the highway there, let's say there's a new highway that they built somewhere, and then you're making those turns, on the off ramp, and then you look at the hillside that they basically blew out to get that ramp built, and you see those, they're like these streams, almost like streamways that are just bare, maybe 2-3 feet deep. What would that be?
2-3 feet deep. 2-3 feet deep. You're looking at a gully erosion there. That's pretty deep erosion, 2 to 3 feet deep. So, and then so if you back that up, a real erosion is going to be a lot less than that. So you're looking at smaller erosion that's basically a foot deep or so at max. And then sheet erosion is really fine, and that's what a lot of our erosion that we see. And it can come off of pretty much any landscape around buildings and structures on your property, in crop fields. I've even seen it a little bit in hay fields, where the hay fields or the pastures aren't managed correctly, and they're cut too short. So we get some soil movement. And those are one of the key things that you want to look at, and we want to look at, because if we can keep the soil in place, I mean, that's going to nurture everything that you have, as well as hold structure for any buildings or other things that you have there on your property.
Right. I mean, it only takes a few thousand years to get a couple inches of soil, right?
Yeah, only a few.
Or maybe longer.
Yeah. So it really depends. So we look at, soil erosion a lot. Other things that we look at, as we're talking and we're having a conversation with you, we're not straitjacket, asking one question, expecting an answer back. We try to have a good conversation with you and get to know what you're wanting to do. So, we also want to know the soil types, because maybe you're wanting to build something. Maybe you are want to build in a pond, or maybe you're wanting to build a structure. Well, we need to know what soils are there. That way we can understand, is it suitable for building things? Because here in southeastern Ohio, we have what we call slip-prone soils, as most of you guys know out there, and have seen a lot of slips this year where we have some movement of soil, and we have a lot of silty soils here as well too. So, and they don't compact as well, and they won't hold water. So if you're wanting to build a pond, if you have the silty soils, they're not going to hold water. So, understanding what you have there is the key. And that's just one of the things that we look at is soils. We also look at water. Water is a huge, huge issue that we have here. And it seems like you either have too much or you don't have enough, right?
That's right. That's right. And we're just talking about the natural water sources in our farms or forests or lakes. Well, or ponds, right? Nobody really has a lake in their property. But our concern should be if it'll eventually get to a lake, like Lake Erie, for instance, or a Gulf of Mexico, possibly. Right. But, these are concerns that you were talking about, the erosion problem. And it's, we talked about these. I mentioned the nutritions of phosphorus and potassium. These are things that will move with the soil. So as Joe said, if you are able to remedy that, so, if it's a simple matter of changing your practice and cutting the hay a little bit higher, especially in times of heavy rains, as you cut the grass higher, the roots will go deeper and will grip that soil better.
Yeah, and you'll have more, and that will help you control your rainfall events better. So, we're getting a lot of rainfall events, as you guys know, where we're getting big dumps of rain here.
20 inches in September.
Yeah. So, where's all that water going? Well, if you have a good root structure and good soil system, then that water is going to infiltrate into that soil better and help your crops farther along, especially if we get into drought years. If you have good soil structure and good root structure, that water gets down and keep that viable. Now, on the other hand, we're also looking at water and how to manage it as well. When we get those 20 inches, maybe we need to put in some sort of structures to help control that flow, maybe a wascob or some tile or things like that. And that's where myself and many of the other techs that work for our agency will gladly come out and help you come up with those options and designs.
All right. So when let's say you walk on a farm and there's a stream there, what are some negative, well, I'm going to say red flags as far as things that you see that are probably hurting the environment? It's something that could be improved.
When it comes to streams?
Right.
Sure. Okay. So if I would happen to walk on a farm and I see a stream right in the middle of the property, first thing that I'm going to look at is, are there any livestock that are entering into the stream, and are they using the stream for a drinking water source, or are they, going to the bathroom in the stream? Because if they're in there, then they probably are, and we don't want that to happen.
So why is that a problem?
Well, that's a problem, and we laugh about it, but it's really not that funny. It really isn't. It is a problem because what we're doing is we're just sending basically direct source nutrients right down the water system, and sure, the old adage, the solution to pollution is dilution. Well, yes and no. So eventually, what we have is something called bioaccumulation, and you're going to get those nutrients accumulating in areas, and then we're going to start getting larger blooms. And whether that's algal blooms in the water or some sort of nitrogen that's coming up in the Gulf, if we can slow that process down just by fencing animals out of the creek, that is really, really helpful. So that's one aspect that I look at. Another aspect is actually just the stream itself. I look at its what we call morphology, or how well does that stream look, and I'll get down in it and I'll look to see if there are living bugs in that stream. And because if there are, that shows me that stream is in good health and good working order, if there's living animals in it. If I walk in there and I don't see living animals in it, then then maybe we have an issue somewhere where the water quality is not that good. And I'll also look at the stream bank itself. How is the stream bank? Is it eroding? Is it stable? What's going on next to it in what we call the floodplain area of the stream. So when the stream does get enough water that it comes up out, what's going on right adjacent to the center line of the stream? Are we cropping right up to it? Or is there a buffer, what we call a buffer strip, an area that is left either mowed and maintained nicely or grown up for wildlife habitat a little bit and maintained for that? So there's a whole aspect of things that we looked at when it comes to stream and stream maintenance.
Right. And on top of that, we did talk about erosion a little bit. So if you are letting your animals get into the stream, not only do you have those nutrients coming out of their behinds, but you also have the soils that are right adjacent to the stream that the animals are basically, if there's any grass there, they're trampling it down, and they're kind of removing the roots that are holding the soil, and you're getting an erosion problem as well. So just allowing the animals not to get into the stream, you're fixing not only the erosion but also a nutrient issue. All right, so Joe, I'm gonna keep pressing here because I know you're long-winded.
It's a huge form, isn't it?
You're long-winded, boy.
Yeah,
Yes, you are. All right. Now, all right. So the next thing I have on this sheet, our environmental, what is it? It's environmental evaluation worksheet. CPA 52 is air.
Air quality.
Air. So resource concern, air.
Yeah.
Tell us about air.
So air quality. All right. So when we look at air quality, so we come to your property, and first thing is really easy right off the bat, and that's just abundant odor. So are we at your farm, and does it have an abundant odor, and of what type? And can that odor be somehow managed better, whether through composting or some sort of manure management to help with that.
Are you basically talking about like animal waste odor?
Yeah, so that's the biggest thing is animal waste odor. So we look at that, and we really do refer to OSU a lot on handling facilities for managing the manure and also the animals that are there. What are you going to do with that 1,000-pound animal if it dies on you? How are you going to manage that? And having the smell of a rotting carcass is not very beneficial to agriculture at all, and it doesn't give us a really good name if we have that smell like that. Now, can we get rid of it all? No, and we don't want to. I mean, we need some of that out there
because it smells like money.
It does. It does smell like money. So, but we look at that aspect. Another big air quality issue that we do look for is, and this one's a huge one, is actually in confinement situations where you have animals that are confined. We want to make sure that there's not a buildup of ammonia in there that can actually harm your livestock. So, so we look at the structures that you have those animals in. Do you have good airflow through them? Is it getting great ventilation? Are your animals coughing a lot? What's going on with that?
Yeah, and on top of that, the ammonia odor from the breakdown of animal waste and things like that. If you don't have good ventilation, that's typically a heavier gas, and that kind of starts accumulating at the lower area. So major concern with things like poultry. And obviously, we're upright. So even though we might not be, well, let's say we're a fraction of a 1,200-pound calf or cow, right? But we might stand up higher. So if you start to see animals getting a little sick, and especially, but poultry is it's kind of the canary, right, in this situation where the chickens really suffer from high ammonia accumulation. So ventilation, are you cleaning the pens or the barn enough? Mm-hmm. And then when we talk about smells, something else that maybe it's not as obvious to some people is location. Maybe there's a better location to move that stuff.
Exactly. And location also, not for the smell, but then also for your flow, for your airflow through it. So location is key when it comes to designing and putting in, any of these type of facilities, so you have good airflow through. That's going to be healthier for your animals. And then you're also going to have that good airflow through is going to help with the dissipation of that smell and not spread it out across the countryside. So that's some of the other big ones that we look at. All right, so next on our list that we look at is we look at the plants or the living green.
Plants are good.
Plants are great. Yeah, so we look at the plants and the plant. We look at a bunch of different things, whether you're row cropping or whether you have a pasture situation or you're doing truck crops, anything like that. Or if this is forestry and you own some forestry property out there, then we're going to look at those trees too. So we're going to look at your plant quality. What plants do you have there? Are they of good quality for your objectives? So if you are growing cows and your objective is livestock, I don't think trees are that beneficial to you at this point in time if they're in your pasture.
Well, what about buckeye trees?
Definitely not buckeye trees or cherry trees, right? Because they can definitely be harmful. So we want to look at your forages mainly and what you have in your pasture.
And again, I think Joe's emphasizing usage. So when we talk about certain desirable plants, they might not be poisonous, but they might not be the best nutrition. So if your goal is to have good erosion control, fatten your cattle, make good money, and have a productive farm, well, maybe having certain weeds in there isn't going to be beneficial. Your cows are going to eat less, gain less. They might not hold the soil as well as certain other plants. So there's an array of things in terms of how these things are interwoven together.
Sure. And we also, I'm also out there with you, and looking at your farm, so maybe we're looking at the pasture situation. We're trying to figure out the plants that are desirable and what we're wanting there. But how many of you guys, and I bet a lot of you, have a small wood crop out there, right? You have a small woodland. Well, we're also going to help you with making recommendations for that too. That way you have a checking account, which is your livestock program. And then you got a big savings account in your back pocket there with some nice, beautiful oaks that you can harvest every couple years to really keep that operation going if you ever needed to fall back on that. So we definitely look at plants and plant quality. We also look at, in the crop situation, plant degradation. You know, are we getting enough nutrients to those plants for them to grow, and the right types of nutrients at the right time? So, you know, are we side dressing? And if so, is it at the right time? Or are we just throwing nutrients at it and praying? Which that works sometimes, but most of the time we're wasting a lot of money doing that, and really getting into the specifics of the row crop is definitely beneficial. And then also understanding your crop rotation when it comes to row cropping. You know, is it beneficial to do a rotation where you have a plant that provides some nitrogen into the soil, such as a legume species, a soybean, right? Before you go into a corn, or the benefits of putting in a cover crop after those soybeans, because they have very low residue, as most of you guys know, and they're not there come spring. So if we have a good, viable, living root from a cover crop, that's very beneficial when it coming into the next crop that you're starting to produce.
Right. And that goes for production, that goes for pest control, for erosion, all kinds of things. One of the things that Joe was saying about kind of throwing nutrients and fertilizer and praying, you know, and this is kind of where extension and I think your NRCS really kind of go hand in hand and help make those adjustments for environmental quality and profits. I know a lot of people out there probably just do things because their great grandfathers did it this way, and their great grandfathers learned from their great grandfathers. And some of these practices, I'll tell you what, are pretty good, but science has made progress, and we found ways to maybe adjust it a little bit and for it to work more so in your favor. A lot of people like to lime every year. So, you know, liming is going to bring that pH up. So in this case, we're talking about it's a soil nutrient type thing, because if you don't have the right chemistry, your plants are going to be able to take those nutrients correctly. But there's an ideal range. And there's a point where, so you want things between 6, if for most grasses, 6 and 6.5 is ideal, but down to 6 is okay. Once you're getting to the 7s and 7.5s, which can happen if you put lime on every single year. What the problem is now, especially if you're also adding something like urea as a fertilizer source, lime and urea basically cancel each, or I shouldn't say they cancel each other out, but the lime will negate the effects of the nitrogen that you're trying to feed the plants. So now you're spending money on both the lime and the urea when you're not, and again, those are good things to put on, but maybe you don't need to spend so much money on lime, and by split applying your lime and your urea, now your production has doubled.
Right. So that's a really good analogy. Another thing that we look at too with those cover crops that help with that. So everyone's has that old fashioned. This is how my grandpa did it. Well, all right, we have a lot of what we call tight soils. I'm sure you guys have heard that saying around here. We have real tight soils. So a lot of clay going on in there. So how do we break that up? Well, we busted out the plow, right? And we plowed so we could break that clay structure.
Boom.
Yeah. Well, so what if I brought at you this idea? Hey, let's not use a plow. Let's go ahead and have our crop in after our soybeans, and let's plant some tillage radishes along with some rye. Yeah, tillage radishes and rye or oats or something like that. All right, so that way we're using vegetation to break up that tight soil, or real hard clay. Those radishes are going to pull nutrients from lower. All right. They're also going to add organic matter to your soil, making it better. And they're going to die off. So you don't have to worry about killing them in the spring to plant your new crop in. So a lot of different things out there that technology has come up with.
All right, yeah, Joe, and that's great. We are running low on time here, so I am going to cut you off.
All right.
But I do want to do a quick recap and let people know like how they contact you if they have questions. I mean, you are a public service, right, Mr. Federal Employee?
Sure, yeah.
So we did talk about environmental evaluation worksheet, and we talked about soil, talked about water, talked about air, plants, animals, and even the human aspect of everything. So if people do have questions for you and what kind of services you provide, could you give us your telephone number?
Yeah, so if you're interested in talking to anyone with USDA NRCS, so again, we have offices covering multiple states. So if you're in looking for assistance, you can gladly contact my office in Barnesville, Ohio. So get a hold of us at 425-1100, and we'll get you to the right direction. If you're over here in Wheeling, we can get you hooked up with the DCs and the conservationists over here too. So we have their phone number. We can help you out with that. So anywhere in the service area, just again call 425-1100 and we'll help you out.
All right. Hey, thank you, Joe. This wraps up another segment of Extension Calling.
Thanks for listening to Extension Calling. This show is a collaboration between OSU Belmont County Extension Educator Dan Lima and WVU Ohio County Extension Agent Karen Cox. If you'd like a transcript of this show, contact us at the office. Also, let us know if you enjoy the show by ranking us on your podcast app.